Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, back with you live for another edition of the show today, a Wednesday edition. We got a couple great guests for you, per usual, on our Wednesday. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Doing well. Getting deeper into the off season. Happy spring training day for Phillies fans. I think they report today, so maybe they'll have a good season. Take some of the heat off the Philadelphia Eagles. I doubt it, though.
I doubt it too, John. I doubt it too.
Yeah. So just the start of the process. Things are going to ramp up at the end of the month, as I mentioned, in Indianapolis. When everybody sort of lays the foundation for free agency, and then you're really off and running when player movement begins, significant player movement.
Yep, and that'll come soon. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep everybody posted and ready for that. Obviously, a lot of potential change here for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the one thing that's on my mind, and we'll talk about this a little bit after we get the updates for the day, but just something to keep in your guys' minds who's listening for a little bit later on in the show. A lot of offensive change on the coaching staff. What kind of change is coming on the personnel? I mean, you would think if they change this much on the coaching staff, is there potential personnel changes to follow, and how big could they be? We'll talk a little bit about that on today's Birds 365. We'll also talk to Mike Gill, all right, who's back from the Super Bowl. He was out there last week on Radio Row or Media Row, whatever it's called nowadays. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him. And then in hour number 2, we'll talk to Brandon Lee Gouton. So looking forward to that. 2 great guests for you guys today. Johnny Mac, what's the latest in Eagle Land? Sounds like we got a couple coaches returning. The first of this news this summer, because we've seen a lot go out. All right, we got a couple staying here in Philly. John, what's the latest on the Eagles coaching staff?
Yeah, at the beginning of all this, we were told it was going to be a mix of old and new, and now we see the old after the mix of the new. Aaron Moorhead's going to stay as the wide receivers coach. Jamal Singleton going to stay as the assistant head coach running backs, which is essentially the running backs coach. And yeah, a couple other low-level staffers are going to be kept around. The most surprising would be Press Taylor. Not Press Taylor.
Press Taylor.
Parks Frazier. Press got the gig in Chicago. Congratulations again to Press. Parks Frazier, who was the passing game coordinator, is going to be back. Obviously, they hired Josh Grizzard. He's not going to have that job. He's going to have some kind of job on the staff. We'll see what it is. Again, the title, maybe senior offensive analysis, something like that. Yeah. You know, one of those types of things. And then, again, some of the lower level guys that most fans probably haven't heard of, Montgomery Van Gorder, Eric Dickerson. If you listen to this show, you know about Eric Dickerson because he's the one who would identify personnel groupings during games. So they're quality control coaches. They'll be back. Greg Austin will be back. So he was the assistant offensive line coach. That would mean he's probably going to stay as the assistant offensive line coach under Chris Cooper, who's new. And then Kevin Patullo's still hanging on. Don't know what that's going to look like. Jason Michael is gone, the tight ends coach. And the one open-ended sort of discussion is quarterback coach. And this is where Scott Lepler's kind of in limbo because they've interviewed some people and want to interview some people. So clearly that's a situation where he's under contract and they can keep him. And if they don't get an upgrade or what they perceive to be an upgrade, then he would be back. But, you know, that's probably not the best scenario for either side.
Sound like the best scenario. Yeah. I interviewed 5 guys to replace.
Yeah.
You know.
My hunch is they're waiting for Greg Olson, who's a long-time offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach in this league. Raiders last year was their interim offensive coordinator. remember they have a new head coach and they just hired him after the Super Bowl. So they probably want to see what he wants to do, and maybe wants to keep him. So my hunch is they're waiting on that because he used to coach Mannion in Seattle, Greg Olson. So I think that would be his preference, but that's just speculation. Obviously, they're waiting on something. And if they don't get that something, Scott Lepler will probably be back.
We'll see about that. That's an interesting scenario where you have guys who are here, but kind of got soft demoted. Like Parks Frazier is going to be back, but he's obviously not the pass game coordinator. Like, what does that mean, John? What does that? I guess does that mean that they like him enough that they'll keep him in the building? But did he try and go and get another? Like, you would think he would be like, I don't want to take a demotion. Let me go try and get another job, and then maybe if you can't find one, do the Eagles bring him back? What kind of scenario? How do you think that plays out behind the scenes? It feels like kind of a muddy situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the NFL coaching profession. I mean, especially assistants. I hate to phrase it this way, but I will. It's like you see the turnover around the league year and year and year. I mentioned it with Tampa Bay yesterday, changing 12 different coaches. It's like shuffling the deck chairs, man. 90% of them.
Right.
You know, Cooper's out in Minnesota. He's in Philadelphia. Grizzard's out in Tampa Bay. He's in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And vice versa. That's the way the league is. That's the way the league works. There are a couple guys, you know, there's some coordinators like Vic who reach a level, but even position coaches like Stout who reach a level to where they become more than that. But it's very rare. It's like 90% might be too high. And you know, if you're in this profession, the worst thing you want to do is get out of it and sit a year out. If you're a position coach, so you have this tremendous, you know, you look at the resumes of all these guys and you see when you get to somebody like Greg Olson, you know, he's coached for 30% of the league. And when his name came out, I did the math. I mean, it's unbelievable how many organizations and for somebody young like Parks Frazier, he's only 34, 35, somewhere in that range. I mean, the worst thing for his career is to sit out a season. So, and you know, you take it as a positive. You get to learn a different style of offense after being in this style of offense in theory. So you become a more well-rounded coach. That's how you have to go about it if you're a Parks Frazier. But yeah, obviously it's not a positive step when you're a passing game coordinator, then you're going to be something less. But, you know, again, I think I mentioned it with Stout, like there's a flow chart and passing game, running game coordinator, they're third in their realm in Philadelphia because they have an offensive head coach. It goes head coach, offensive coordinator, run game, pass game coordinator. They're not in charge of anything. So you learn and hopefully you get a better opportunity down the road. Look at Press Taylor. I brought him up by mistake, but look at him.
Yeah.
Now he's the offensive coordinator again in the Chicago Bears, and in a
hang
position.
In there, John. You got to hang in there. Keep plugging, and maybe your opportunity will come.
If the Bears continue to play well, and you know we know what people think of Ben Johnson.
Yep.
He's on the cusp. So sort of the way the industry works. Unfortunately, it's a difficult industry.
It is. It's a very difficult industry. John, the two names I think that people are going to be talking about, and that's Aaron Moorhead and Jamal Singleton, the two guys returning in their same roles. What's your thought on those guys returning? Do you think it's good? Do you think they should have just, I mean, if they cleaned the rest of the house, you might as well clean the last bedroom too. Should they have just cleaned it out? I mean, I don't know why people seem to think Aaron Moorhead sucks. I don't have a problem with the guy. I can't really tell whether he's good or bad.
I saw that in the comment. My God, I mean, there's a perfect example.
I mean, I got him on my ex too. Oh, they brought back Moorhead. What do we go?
What is the
First,
problem with Aaron Moorhead?
know about what Aaron Moorhead actually does.
Welcome to my world. I had no idea why these people latch on to these narratives.
Well, I will say this: is it because he got the only good receivers, I guess, in Philly have been Devontae and AJ, and those people look at them as finished products. So they're like, who has he developed? I don't know. I don't know why they were so hard on Aaron Moorhead, but they don't seem to like Aaron Moorhead, John. He's in the crosshairs after Kevin Patullo has been taken out already.
Yeah, well, it's similar to if you have good players, I mean, I don't know how that's a detriment to somebody's resume. It's only going to help you, and obviously, yeah, sure, it's easier to coach AJ Brown and Devontae Smith than insert name, but I think you also have to give the guy credit to say like Devontae Smith hasn't improved since he got here. That's blatantly false.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, he was a great rookie, and but there was a lot to learn, and he's gotten much better over the years. And AJ, from the standpoint of when he came in, and everybody knew the talent level, but nobody knew he was going to be this good. He's coming off a down year from his perspective, but nobody looked at AJ Brown like he was a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Now, part of that was circumstance, being in Tennessee with a run-first offense, and ironically comes to a run-first offense here. And that's, by the way, explains a lot of his frustration. He spent his entire career in that type of environment. But he performed a lot better here than he did in Tennessee. So yeah, I don't know. But then the estimation is, well, I assume, and I get from my comment, well, he hasn't developed anybody. Well, who the fuck are you going to develop that's going to go ahead of those two? Like, what are you even asking for? Like Darius Cooper, there's a lot of positives there. There's a raw guy.
Yeah.
Who played 200 and whatever snaps as an undrafted rookie from Tarleton State. And I think he's going to be in the equation. They're going to draft somebody or bring somebody in for competition. But I think he's going to be in the equation to earn some playing time with a strong summer. That's not a positive. Jahan Dotson. Look, when the ball went his way here, he made the plays. And that, that's a lot different than like when Quez Watkins was the third receiver or somebody of that nature.
Yeah.
Now,
I actually think Jahan might be a nice player, but we haven't been able to really see that in Philly.
Well, that's the style of offense, which what you think Aaron Moorhead can control the traffic?
Yeah, right. He can, but he's not that powerful.
I'm glad you brought that up because he was getting shit on in the comments. Yeah, and I just don't understand where these people. I mean, what information do you have? The people that shit on him.
What do you think of them? You have more information than them. What do you think? I mean, you've watched them up close. You've had a chance, as close as you can get. You've been to practices, to camps, what do you think of Aaron Moorhead? Do you think it's good?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, great dude, number one, connects with people. So to me, that's the more important part. To the players, like players love him. So I mean, the players tell you more about the coaches. And I like when they bring them up unprompted and how they helped and things like that. So you hear a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it doesn't, it surprises me if you go back to, because Aaron was here for Doug Peterson's last year. He got here before Nick Sirianni. So he wasn't a Nick Sirianni guy. He is now. And he kind of earned it because Nick didn't want him early on. And Nick was a wide receiver in college. He was a wide receiver coach. That's sort of his expertise from a positional standpoint. And he, didn't necessarily want to carry him over, but he had to. That's a similar situation to what Scott Leffler's dealing with this year. You probably have a new offense who doesn't really want him, but he might have to use him and carry him over, and maybe you take advantage of the situation. That's how I think it's worked out for Aaron Moorhead. And then Jamal Singleton, I mean, yeah, no surprise he's back. He was one of the ones I projected that would be back because, I mean, what has he done wrong?
I know. I mean, his running back had a historic season a year ago.
Well, and even before that, ironically,
yeah, Miles has played well here.
Yeah,
DeAndre Swift played well here. Kenny Gainwell, developed here. I think Jamal Singleton's been fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then this past year was probably his worst year. It was shot. I mean, because they had such.
But again, that's
year.
the classic case, John. That you always say. Well, what could Jamal Singleton
really?
Yeah,
I know.
I mean,
I think people don't understand, like, the flow chart. Like, the offense is Nick Sirianni, Kevin Petula. That's the offense. So, and people shit on Kevin plenty. They probably need to shit on Nick more because it's his offense. But yeah, everybody else is working towards their goals. They're not, they don't have, Jeff Stoutland doesn't have power over the running game. Certainly, Parks Frazier didn't have power over the passing game, nor will Josh Grizzard have it this year. Their support staff. The offense is Nick Sirianni, Kevin Petullo last season. This season it'll be Nick Sirianni, Sean Mannion.
We'll see how it unfolds. All right, those guys have returned. That's the update on the Eagles coaching staff. I want to thank everybody for being here. We got 2 super chats we're going to get to here in this opening segment. And then coming up in a little bit, we're going to have Mike Gill join the show. Looking forward to talking to Mike. Let's go to Anthony Hunt, who checks in with a $5 super chat. What's up, Anthony? When it comes to Eagles issues, why does the defense get a free pass? Defense wasn't good enough against the depleted 49ers squad.
Do you listen to the show? I didn't give them a pass.
No, you did not.
They didn't play well. I said it consistently. Nobody wanted to hear it, but I said it consistently. They did not play well in that game. And the offense, actually, as shitty as it was, it got the lead, and the defense could have held up, but they didn't.
I think the thing I struggle with there, Anthony, would be, I look at the whole season, and I understand the defense didn't have their best game in that Niner game, but what was the problem on the team? Why did the team not reach expectations? To me, it wasn't the defense, but I do understand your point about in-game, they didn't have their best game. So that's kind of how I look at it. I don't know if that's fair or not, but just the way I see it. Here's Brandon Lewis. What's up, Brandon? People think coaching is magic. LOL. Yeah, Brandon.
They really do, man. They think it's a video game. Well, just get that guy in the right position. Scheme him open.
Well, you know why they think it's a video game? Because they're the coach in the video game, and they think they're the geniuses.
Scheme open Jake Bobo. I mean, what? I'll pick on somebody else just because I like Jake's name, by the way.
It's a good name.
Scheme him open. It doesn't, it's a lot easier when you can run a hitch route with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and they just beat one-on-one coverage. That's a hell of a lot easier than scheming somebody open.
Agreed. All right, good stuff there, Brandon. Thanks for the super chats. Appreciate everybody being here today. Hit that like button. Drop your comments down below. We do appreciate all you guys being here. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, and then also subscribe to my guy, Mike Gill, who's coming up next here on Birds 365. Let's bring him in right now. You can follow him at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe to his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show, and listen to him at 97.3 ESPN, down the shore, 97.5 The Fanatic. Mike, welcome back from Santa Clara, my friend. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing all right. I do agree as well. I mentioned on my show the day after how disappointed I was in the defense. As John mentioned, they didn't get the lead once. They got the lead twice in the fourth quarter of that game, and the defense was unable at home to hold the lead in the fourth quarter twice. As lousy
remember,
as
guys, they did get 2 picks in that second half, and the Eagles' offense wasn't able to capitalize.
This is true, but you have a lead in the fourth quarter twice.
Yeah, it's
If
fair.
you are an elite level, look, the one big thing I took from the Seahawk-Niner game was the Seahawks stuffed the Niners in a locker. The Eagles offense didn't stuff the Niner locker into an offense. They struggled to get them off the field, and that was even after George Kittle got hurt in that game. We had this built up in our head that the Eagles had this elite defense. Why? Because we like Vic Fangio. We don't like Nick Sirianni as much, so his offense sucks. But Vic Fangio, who we like, we don't want to call him out. His defense did not get the job done on a game at home when you had the lead in the fourth quarter. It's okay to say it for one day. It played well for most of the year, but you know what else they didn't play well? In the Bronco game. They had a lead in the fourth quarter. I know the offense was not good, but we knew that. You were supposed to be the unit to bail them out in those moments, and twice they could not do it against superior opponents.
Yeah, it's not. It's talking about a particular game, not the season. The season, you're
Correct.
right. Zander's right. The theme was the offense didn't in that game though. It's hardly controversial to say the defense did not do its job. I mean, when you're given that lead, given that baton, and you're a top tier defense, and everybody wants you just saw one of the best in the Super Bowl, Seattle, Houston, the top defenses this year. They weren't at that level. They weren't at the 2024 Eagles defensive level, which was number one. They were very good. They were better than I thought they would be, considering what they lost coming into the season. But they weren't at that level. And I think people kind of thought they were. And I think it showed in the playoffs that they weren't. But that, to me, that's hardly controversial, Mike.
Well, and the one thing was we had wondered where in the year before we had wondered all year long, and they answered those questions in the playoffs. Did they have enough pass rush? And Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt came on like gangbusters to lead them to a Super Bowl. The pass rush just was not as efficient with this year's team when you need it to be. The questions were there. Then they went and got Jalen Phillips, and that was supposed to be the thing that really eased your mind that they were going to have enough pass rush. And quite frankly, in that game against let's be honest, that Niners team was a joke, and they couldn't get to the quarterback really in that game.
No.
Whereas the year before, those same questions were there, but they got answered in the biggest moments. In that playoff game, that question was there, and you were hoping that they would break out, and it never happened.
Well, Mike, let's talk about the fallout, all right, of that. Now we got an offensive staff that has been completely revamped, all right? We haven't talked in 2 weeks. You were at the Super Bowl yesterday. Jeff Stoutland is out. I mean, a lot of changes, Mike, coming on the offensive staff. What do you make of what's unfolded in Eagle Land the last couple of weeks since the last time we talked to you?
Well, there's a couple ways you can look at it. One, and we were down at the Super Bowl. We did talk to Cooper DeJean, did talk to Reed Blankenship, N'Kobe Dean, and I thought the interesting part was the minute you brought up Stoutland's name, how much they connected with the defensive players. Jeff Stoutland did. They all talked about Stout's my guy. N'Kobe Dean said right away, he's my guy. You know, these guys love him. However, you look at it from the other side of the coin and say the Eagles looked at themselves in the mirror and said, we had a great 5-year run. We did it this way, but the league is evolving and changing. And if we try to keep doing it this way, we're going to get left behind. And unfortunately, Jeff Stoutland, you might have to be the shrapnel in that you want to have this voice on the offense, and we can no longer allow you to have that voice if we want to go into this direction. So I think it's unfortunate that Stoutland decided to not stay on board as the offensive line coach. It seems that he was well respected in that role. But if he wanted to have a bigger role and was unwilling to allow the team to evolve without his voice, this is the end result of that. Now you got to move on. And now you have to hope that this calculated decision allows them to take that step forward, because it's quite obvious that their offense, philosophy-wise, needs a change. Now, we talked about this on my show yesterday with John. Do they have the right personnel currently to change to what they're about to change to? That will be the interesting part moving forward.
Yeah, it certainly will be, and we'll talk about some of those personnel because I don't see the fit. But to me, before you get to that point, and in a number of circumstances, at least, it doesn't seem to be, as you point out, Mike. They built for a certain way, and they were successful in that. Now they're shifting gears. I want to talk about the shifting gears because, boy, I got to tell you, and I talked about this with an Eagles executive, not a personnel guy. So, he was not, he's not in these types of conversations, but, they had a lot of pride that they, as Howie would say, zigged when everybody else is zagged. So, what we were talking about is the discussion, the offseason list, where Jalen Hurts is lower than everybody thinks he should be. And I gave him my thought, and Zander's heard it numerous times when they're doing these lists, and I'm talking about the real list. I'm not talking about Bob's football blog. I'm talking about the Sando list, the Fowler list, where they talk to coaches and executives. And my mindset has always been, well, they don't play the way the Eagles play, and they don't want to play the way the Eagles play. So they answer the question of who would they want, and they would want a Matthew Stafford or a Justin Herbert or somebody like that, because it's easier to build a team around that more traditional quarterback set. So I say all that to say this. Warren Sharp put out under center drop back passes in 2025, and the Eagles are down at 30th. And everybody sort of latched on. And by the way, that's a big improvement from where they usually are, because they were strictly a gun, pistol team. And they pretty much still were last season, although they did it more to run. And all the teams at the top, Rams are number 1, Bears were number 2, Seahawks number 3, 49ers were 5, Bills were 6, Patriots were 8th, Packers were 9th, Texans were 11th. And the teams who didn't make the playoffs, those were all playoff teams. Detroit, very good team, circumstance. Dallas, say what you want, very good offense. Minnesota, say what you want, didn't have a quarterback. Good team, just missed the playoffs with a bad quarterback. Those are the other teams. So everybody's having success that way. Until you look down and look at the teams that, don't have success and look at the personnel of those teams. My point is, are people just assuming if you put somebody under center, that you win? Like, where are we? Why is everybody? I don't like groupthink, Mike Gill.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are going along for the ride. I don't like it.
And do they have the personnel to go along for the ride? It's one thing if they think, hey, we had a quarterback that was not being utilized properly in the previous system, so we got rid of those people. And now we're bringing in somebody who's going to get more out of our quarterback. Wasn't the thought process is they ran what they ran because they tried to maximize what they had from the quarterback. Not that they were leaving meat on the bone here. So do we think that putting Jalen Hurts under center and having him try to run a, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, Mike McDaniel type of offense is now going to unlock this guy to become a 4,000-yard passer, some elite, pass game all of a sudden? I don't know that a lot of people believe that, right? I mean, I think what has really hurt Jalen in the last year or so in terms of this offense is his lack of using his running ability to add that extra dimension has really cost this team offensively. That, and, it's funny. I don't know if you guys caught wind of the Jeff Garcia little story that happened from Radio Row, which originated on our show, in which he claims he called the Eagles to help coach, to join the staff. He had been Sean Mannion's coach in LA with the Rams in 2015. He says he called Nick, he called Howie, he offered his services to coach, and his reasoning was valid. That part of it was bizarre. Now, the Eagles reached out to Jeff Mosher and said, there's only one problem with this story, Jeff. Jeff Garcia has never reached out to us. Now, he was adamant on our show. Twice he brought it up on 2 different occasions. He did offer. I had no idea he had coached Sean Mannion. So bad job by me. I didn't know that background. He offered it and then offered that he called the team to coach. They reached out to Jeff and said it never happened. The point is, the whole dissertation he gave to get to the point that he wanted to help coach was what he saw as a deficiency in Jalen Hurts, is that he is missing his first read, and then after that he is rushing, and it causes him to flush out of the pocket, and then the play dies. He's saying there are plays that he is missing constantly, and that would be what he would be trying to coach out of him. Stop thinking about the big play all the time and just take what's given to you. And there's an area where he felt that Hurts needs to grow as a quarterback. He better know how to do that in this offense.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Mike, what do you think about the fit of Saquon Barkley in this offense?
I think the whole thing, the offensive line that they have built, that is more predicated to what they do now. Not, the West Coast, there's a lot more zone scheming, blocking, where the line and coupled with Saquon Barkley, is that going to be able to be a fit for what you're doing in this West? I guess it's going to be some sort of West Coast system, correct? I mean, that's what we're all assuming. And he will be an interesting fit in that. But I think more than Barkley, it will be the offensive line. How are those guys going to adjust now? Number one, Jordan Mailata never played football before in his life. The only offensive line coach he's ever worked with is Jeff Stoutland. Lane Johnson got drafted in 2013. The only offensive line coach he has ever worked with is Jeff Stoutland. All these guys have only worked with Jeff Stoutland, but those 2 bookend tackles, that's all they know. The only techniques they know are essentially from Jeff Stoutland. Now you're going to have some guy come in saying, hey, you ever try doing this? Why should I listen to you? I mean, really? You're going to try to have this guy tell these 2 guys and everybody else the technique that you've been taught may not be the way I want to do it. So you have that whole dynamic about to come crashing together here, and I find that part of it. I think Barkley will find his way as long as there's ways to find. There wasn't very many ways to find this year. So to me, it's less Barkley than it is the offensive line and getting that thing back together, because I think Barkley is, listen, he's as talented as they come. We had Barry Sanders on at Radio Row, which was unbelievable to get to talk to Barry. He doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of media, but one of the things he talked about was in watching Saquon, how much, he kind of sees himself, the stop on the dime, the ability to change, and all those kind of things. And he kind of he said, this year I saw a lot of what I had to go through with their offensive line problems there, where you could stop, you could change direction, and he just didn't have any place to go. So the offensive line dynamic in this offense will be will trump, to me, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, the personnel stuff is interesting from the standpoint, in theory, you want to build towards what the coaches want to use, and if that is shifting so dramatically, offensive line, you're talking wide zone stretch, you're talking a lot of reach blocks. In theory, that would mean Alex Gibbs and more athletic offensive linemen, rather than the big monsters that they currently have. You would want, in theory, a more patient runner than Saquon, the Le'Veon Bell type that can pick things. And even you saw in the Super Bowl how patient the Seahawks running game was with Kenny Walker. So that to me is more of what you want on paper. Now the problem Howie Roseman has is, look, this coaching staff might not even be here next year. So how do you build? Do you just, hey, I'm taking the best players, and they'll figure it out? Like Saquon Barkley, potential Hall of Fame running back. Is it the best fit for him, this scheme? Probably not, but will he figure it out? Is that how you have to go about it? And even defensively, Vic Fangio might be gone next year. And what if Jim Schwartz comes back and you're running the old Jim Schwartz scheme? There was talk about the reaching out to Jim. It changes so dramatically in the NFL so quickly. How do you build around schemes? Can you build around schemes?
And that's the interesting part is now the Eagles, by the way, the betting odds for next year, the Eagles are the favorite to win the division. So it looks like on the certain, now look, the whole offseason still needs to materialize here. But do we think this team is in such transition that they go from Super Bowl to division champion, wild card team to out of the playoffs? I don't know that. Do we feel that this is where this is going, that they need to go backwards first and then turn this thing back around? Or do they anticipate these changes will instantaneously bring them back towards the top? That's what conversation we're not aware of, all right, we need to make changes, and the changes might bring us backwards a year, but as long as we get everything kind of back in the right, right direction. Or do they look at this change to go from wild card back to Super Bowl immediately? And if that's the case, is that what Nick's being judged on? And if they don't go in that direction, what's Nick's future then? Because you can't keep changing the coordinator over and over and over and over, and then he gets to keep staying. As much as you might say, well, he's not calling the plays, it's not his fault. Ultimately, you're the head coach, and it does come back on you, because if I have to keep changing the play caller because you're not doing it, that's where his job becomes a little flimsy. So what are the expectations now that you have made this change? Is it immediate success or one step back to take two steps forward? And the building of the team might take a little bit more time if you have to evaluate everybody in this scheme to see who fits, because everybody is signed, at least on the offensive side of the ball, right? Everybody on offense, except for Goddard, is signed. So you would assume they are all going to get a look and see who fits and who does not.
Yeah, I mean, this much change to the coaching staff. You got to think some personnel will change as well. We'll find out.
Think about it. Mailata, Dickerson, depending on what his future looks like.
Yeah.
Juergens, Steen, and Johnson. All five of those guys are signed, and depending on what Lane wants to do. But all five guys are signed, and they really don't have a guy waiting in the wings. So they're probably hopeful that all five guys return. Then you've got the two receivers. What's going to happen with A.J. Brown? That will be a story, obviously, in the next couple of weeks here. Devontae is back. You probably need to find that next wide receiver regardless, but a third guy would be helpful. They really have never had that third guy that they've trusted or even really done much with in this offense. I would think this new offense, a third guy will now be something that is a necessity to have. The running back is signed. The quarterback is signed. The only guy who's not is Goddard, and Goddard probably be the one guy that you would want back in this offense for next year. So it's almost a trial by fire for everybody.
It really is. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. Mike, how does this change what you think they might do in free agency? I mean, they do have some pending guys. They're mostly defensive guys. You mentioned Goddard, obviously, but Jalen Phillips, Reed Blankenship, Nakobe Dean, Dallas Goedert. Those are probably the four biggest names. What's your early thought on what you think the Eagles might do in free agency?
I mean, at first you're thinking Jalen Phillips, right? They traded for him. Does he come back? Do they think that he's a must bring back in this situation? Or do they think they have enough? Or do you want to even swing bigger than Jalen Phillips? Last year, the rumor the whole summer was Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, and nothing ended up happening. But they did make a trade, which says they thought they needed a bigger swing than what they ended the season with. So do they take that swing at the beginning of the season? By the way, all the Myles Garrett talk, imagine having him on this team defensively. He didn't have that good of a year, right? I mean, geez. But do they value Phillips, or do they think they need to go above Phillips and get a higher, more talented guy than that? That's interesting. The Goddard thing, you let him walk. They don't have another tight end on the roster, really. I mean, they have some under Latu's here, and some guys right, futures guys.
Jenkins,
right. Nobody that's going to step in and be Dallas Goedert right from Jump Street. So Goddard almost becomes a higher importance guy than maybe you thought. Dean, we had him on the show last week. He was adamant he wants to come back, but where's the fit there? That's obviously going to be a tough one for them. Reed Blankenship, we did have him on the show. He obviously wants to come back. Him and Cooper we had on together. Those two guys, great friendship. They want to play with each other. Does Blankenship have a big enough market? Is there a team out there, Dallas, that would woo him enough that the Eagles would have to maybe overpay for him to stay? So that one will be interesting. Do they get involved and say, listen, we got to get a veteran corner, or do we want to draft another corner? We've had some success in doing that, with Quignon and Cooper. So they've got a variety of free agent questions that are also tied to the draft, because if you let Phillips walk, 23, you now got to look at an edge guy. If you let Goddard walk, you might have to look at a tight end. If you don't get a corner, you might have to look at 23 and get a corner. You obviously at 23 have to be looking at offensive line and thinking about Lane leaving and Landon banged up and all that stuff. So this becomes a Rubik's Cube of what's the most important, what's, best player available at these positions that we need. And now you've got yourself a fun little offseason here.
Yeah, and don't forget wide receiver with A.J. Brown. If the
Well,
Eagles,
that's on top of the A.J.
Yeah.
Brown stuff, which, by the way, we did see A.J. We did ask him to talk, and he said, I am not talking. And then he went and talked to Micah Parsons.
Well, that's a little bit different.
Well,
to my knowledge, he didn't talk to any reporters. So that's a little bit different.
No,
I mean,
and that's what we said. We said, Micah not being a reporter, he knew he was not going to get the questions that he was going to get.
Yeah.
He still got him. He still got put out there a little bit.
Yeah. So, a lot, you know how it works. Game day, you get repackaged stuff, and they repack. And the big news on Super Bowl Sunday was local news. The Eagles have had no trade talks with A.J. Brown.
Right.
Now, if you actually watch Mike Garafolo on the show, he gave the context. Well, you don't talk about trades. You talk about trades in Indianapolis. So that's really a nothing burger. So, but being out there, getting the feel, you talk to a lot of people. I've sort of wavered back and forth. I was 52-48 at the end of the season that he was going to leave. He wasn't going to be here. Now I'm sort of 52-48. He's going to be back. On that kind of scale, what's your feel? Are the Eagles going to? I know they're going to try to fix things with A.J. Brown, but do you think he'll be back next season?
Well, from what he said to Micah Parsons, he said change is a good thing. And I read that as, and then he followed it up by going out of his way to praise Kevin Patullo. Like, I like Kevin. He's got a good heart. And that to me was, I like Kevin, but he was the same offense that we've been in that I've been saying has not been working. They changed that, and now I'm excited for what's next because, listen, I don't dislike Kevin. And we talked to Keyshawn Johnson, and we asked Keyshawn, look, you were famously a guy who was a pain in the ass. Did you not like somebody? He said, no, AJ doesn't not like somebody. He doesn't like the offense. He likes it here. He wants to be here. He likes everybody. He just doesn't like the offense. It's like I talked about this on my show yesterday. You like your job. You like the people you work with. You like the proximity of how far it is from your house. You just don't like your pay. But do all the other things keep you there over the lack of pay that you want because you're so comfortable in those things? I think AJ is comfortable in everything except for the offense. He doesn't like the offense. Now, the change that he says, change is a good thing. I'm excited for the season. Kevin has a good heart. I don't dislike him. I just didn't like the offense that he had to call. And now I'm excited because they finally got that offense out of here. So
all right. Let me play devil's advocate, Mike. Change is a good thing. And you pointed out, can he also be saying, hey, New England would be a change?
Absolutely. He could be. Yeah, absolutely. But as again, I'm going off of we asked a guy like Keyshawn Johnson, who again was a pain in the ass, and his assertion was that AJ doesn't not like Jalen or Nick or Howie or Jeffrey.
Oh, yeah. It's not about people. I said that yesterday.
It's not people he doesn't like. It was he did not like his role in the offense. He did not like the offense. The offense just was not something that he enjoyed. Now you get a new coordinator, and I'm guessing it's an offense that he is excited to be a part of. Now, could he be saying change is good? I'll go to New England, and that is something that will excite me? Sure, that could be a possibility, but I think ultimately he likes it here. He wants to be here. And now they have, quote unquote, appeased him. I don't know if they did it to appease him, but they have now made a move that says we're not running this Knicks offense anymore. It will now be a completely different scheme. Are you cool with that? I'm excited for the season ahead.
All right, now I want you to look at it from, because I think everybody, and rightfully so, has kind of looked at it from AJ's standpoint. I want you to look at it from the Eagles' standpoint. Do you want to go through this again? And by that, I mean, look,
you have it to the deadline, so you could say we'll give you to the deadline, and if this goes south, you're gone.
Yeah, but you know, the where you're going to have maximum leverage to get the most is never at the deadline. It's in March when everybody's got the big budget and everybody's got the ability to maneuver more. I only ask that because, you know, one of the reasons I say the Eagles are going to try it one more time, and really the major reason, is the cap ramifications. If you took the cap ramifications out of it, which you can't do, but if you did, I think the Eagles are out. I think they're completely out. And I think that's the mindset underneath all this. It's just like, from their perspective, I think it's just too much. You know, it's like, because I think a lot of people say, well, it was this year. No, it was all of last year when they won the
Not only that, you look at the team that just won the Super Bowl. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then really not much else in the passing game there. I mean, you got Cooper Kupp a little bit over the, past his prime, still solid, but not what he was. They brought in Rashid Shaheed, who was kind of a one-trick pony. They didn't invest a lot of money into that receiver core. Now they're going to have to with Smith and Jigba, obviously, but still, they had one guy. Do the Eagles say, look, Devontae Smith can be that one guy. We can find a young player that kind of can play opposite. We don't have to pay what we're paying, especially what we're getting out of these two guys. But you're right, the cap hit will be enormous. Now, they have taken that cap hit in the past with Carson Wentz to move on from a guy that they felt that it was time to move on from. So it will be a very interesting stare down. Did they make this move to try to get more from their wide receivers? Change this offense to try to get more from their wide receivers? Because we talked about it before, the star of this team has been their offensive line. This year, the offensive line was not the star of the team. In fact, it was a huge problem. So was that their pivot point of making the change? Is that the line is no longer capable of being the star of this team? So we're going to have to now adjust and make the star of this team the two receivers. We'll see. I mean, if now I know Diana Rossini takes a lot of shit from Eagles fans. She's
always right, by the way.
And she was on our show. And she said, I'm not reporting. I asked her just a question whether she thought AJ would be back. And she said she does not think he will be back. So I can see Eagle fans now saying that's why he'll be back. Because Diana said, by the way, she was the nicest person in the world.
Oh,
she comes down the shore.
Yeah.
She comes down the shore all the time. She was very gracious. But she also predicted that AJ would not be back, as did, by the way, Keyshawn. We asked Keyshawn, and he also believes that AJ will be gone. Now, I don't know how well he knows AJ, if at all, but both of those people believe that AJ will be gone.
All right, there you have it. You're right about Diana. I mean, everything she has reported has turned out to be true, so people need to get over it. But, you got to stop having the baby ears. Nobody's trying to destroy the Philadelphia Eagles. They're just trying to get information and trying to give you the best information. And in my opinion, and I'll say it right here, she is the best national insider, or has been, when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles this year. So that's all I'll say about Diana. I'll probably get shit for it, but whatever. The coaches, I mean, boy, Chris Cooper for Jeff Stoutland, man. Woo. That is, a guy, you and I have been talking about it for years with the Vikings. Great skill position players normally. Now they fell off with the quarterback. For years, that team has been near the top of the NFL when it comes to skill position players and just had a terrible offensive line. And you're replacing the best offensive lineman, the best offensive line coach, at least from a reputation standpoint, with a guy who Minnesota didn't want anymore. Concern level of Mike Gill.
You're right. I've talked about this a lot, whereas the Eagles' offensive line was the star of their team. And we always talk about, they got Justin Jefferson and they had Dalvin Cook and they had this great offense out there, but their offensive line was so bad they couldn't make the playoffs with these great skill position guys. And I know Dalvin Cook was a little bit before that, but the same was true with some of the receivers and weapons that they had. Now, they did win 14 games last year, but their offensive line. Now, this goes again. Cooper was on the staff in Denver when Vic was the head coach there. So did Vic put in a word and the Eagles just kind of listened to that? Mannion, I think, was on the Vikings.
Yeah, he was on the Vikings in 2023, I believe.
Right.
2021 and 23. So Cooper was there in 23, yeah.
Right. So this, obviously, there's a lot of connections that, maybe they didn't do a wide netted search for this position and just said, hey, I got a guy. It might not be the best guy, but I got a guy. So, yeah, I listen, anybody who steps into this job was going to be in a tough situation where, again, this offensive line is littered. In fact, everyone on this line, none of the 5 starters have played anywhere else. They've only played here and only have learned under Jeff Stoutland, including 2, one a Hall of Famer, and the other one of the best in the league, and he's only played football in one spot in his life. The only coach he's ever had to teach him. So now the new guy's got to step in, whoever that new coach would have been, to try to now tell Jordan Mailata, hey, you may have been taught something incorrectly before. Or I don't like the way that you do this, and this is the way that I teach it. Now, I'm not saying that's the way that Chris Cooper's going to approach it, but I'm assuming there's going to be something that he sees that he's going to say, hey, why do you do it that way? And they say, because that's what the best offensive line coach of all time told me to do. What is your recommendation, buddy? You're not in an advantageous position being the guy that fills in. But this one sounds more like, hey, I know a guy. Let's just bring him in.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, that's the point of changing the scheme. I mean, they run the obviously Shanahan McVay type of system in Minnesota that they want. So that's the connection. They're trying to shift to that wide zone, the stretch sort of mentality in the running game. And this guy's got experience doing it and experience under that type of head coach. So I don't know. I'm not a scheme guy. It's a cliche for a reason. If you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. I feel like the Eagles are hiring a scheme with assistant coaches.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they just wanted to change the entire – listen, everybody's been asking for this offense to change or evolve or whatever word you want to use, and they are appeasing you now. Now, one of the big questions has been Kellen Moore came here. His offense is not a Nick Sirianni offense. And we were wondering how different would that offense look, and it ended up not looking all that different. You go watch a Saint game and say, that doesn't look like the Eagles last year. They look a lot different. You watch his Dallas teams, even his 1 year with the Chargers. So you had a coordinator who had different ideas. He was not given the ability to implement a lot of those ideas. We're just assuming now that Mannion – is getting full autonomy, and Nick, you don't get to tell me what plays you want me to call. I'm calling my own plays. Is that how this is working?
Yeah, I mean, to start, It doesn't mean it ends that way, as you pointed out with Kellen Moore. It started that way with Kellen Moore. The first 4 games did not look like the final. How many games they played? 20. It didn't look like the final run to the Super Bowl. It looked completely different. So I think you have a similar mindset going in, but this time they're really trying to change. I don't know if they're really trying to change back in 2024, like 100%. Everybody's behind it. You're on board or not. I think this time it's like we're doing this come hell or high water. Now, if it is hell through week 8,
and is this to get an answer on what their quarterback is?
Well, I think that's part of it. I think, but I don't think it's I think the major part is they think that this is the way you have to play now. They've made that adjustment, and I can't say I think, because I've said pretty consistently, I find it hard to believe that the Nick Sirianni I've talked to for 5 years all of a sudden woke up one day and said, all right, they caught up to me. We can't do this anymore. So, and that's not reporting. That's just speculation. I think it's coming from the top. I think it's
and it likely could, but it's like, did Nick sit down and kind of like, man, we got to do something different. Like, I got to go and I'll pitch it to Howie. Howie, we got to do something different. And everybody was like, you're right, Nick, we do. As opposed to the last time with Doug, they say, Doug, we need to do something different. And Doug says, no, we don't. You know what I mean?
I always say, I think the difference between Nick and Doug is Nick is more politically savvy. Like, Nick understands what the landscape is, and he's not going to, obviously, if Jeffrey Lurie wants something done, it's going to be done. And he can be on board or not on board.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. Hey, he's not running offensive stuff through Howie Roseman. Yeah, I mean, it's Jeffrey. Like, Jeffrey is behind this shift, and he's always wanted, let's be honest, he's always wanted to have a different style, a more high-octane passing offense. And they're going back to that mentality, and this is the way they think. And again, I hesitate to use that word they. It's going to be interesting because ultimately, look, Nick's history has been he'll play the game in the offseason, and then when it gets to the regular season, he's going to try to win the fucking football game on Sunday. And if that means going back to risk averse,
well, it's like the first 7 games, he gave Jalen the opportunity to show him what he was, and Jalen showed that maybe I'm not ready for your offense, and they scaled it back and became a run-first team. And ever since that 8th game of the first season, they have been a run-first team because the first 7 games, they did throw the ball 40 times, 38 times, 35 times, and Jalen was not capable of
well, to Jeff Garcia's point about not hitting the first read, I mean, we've been talking about that for years. The ball doesn't come out on time too often. Can they change that?
Right.
We're going to see. That's going to be the brilliance of it.
We will find out. Mike, last real quick question for me. If I forced you to make a pick today, is this the beginning of the end for Nick Sirianni? You think he'll be here when we're talking this time next year?
Wow, that's a loaded question there. Holy mackerel. Jeez. I'd probably say yes. I mean, do I think the team is going to bottom out and go? I mean, I say bottom out for this team is like 9-8, 8-9.
No. They already blew shit up with 11.
Well, they already act like a 5-win team with 11 wins.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So if they drop 2 wins, does that say? I mean, look, Howie went out of his way to talk about Nick and what he likes about Nick. And what he likes about Nick is not what fans judge their head coach on, right?
No, certainly not.
They don't judge their head coach on, do you hold people accountable? Are you attention to detail? all of those things that there's no graph on the Madden football game for. That's what they value in Nick. How long, though, can they continue to value that over if Sean Mannion gets hired and they have to replace him again, which is quite possible, I guess. If you're in Philadelphia and the team succeeds, they're going to go right back to that guy and say, you're our next head coach. How many times can Nick keep handling that? And then you know what happens? They promote Josh Grizzard because he was here. The team has a down year, and then they go outside. You can't keep that cycle going. So I'll say yes, only because I think the team will be a playoff team and be probably pretty good. But that's a flimsy yes for sure.
Yeah, I hear you.
Which isn't really fair to Nick. I mean,
yeah, well, I don't disagree with that, but that doesn't change what the owner will do.
Well, Mike Vrabel, what does he do? He doesn't call plays. What does he do? Nobody says that.
I get legitimately mad when I get that and I must get it 100 times a day on JAKIB chats.
Yeah. What does Mike Tomlin do?
What's he do? I'm like, are you so dense that you don't think the head coach of a football team does anything outside of calling plays?
What does John Harbaugh do? He doesn't call any plays.
I've been a CEO coach guy for 20. I don't get the people who don't want a CEO coach. I don't get those.
I prefer now. A lot of those CEO coaches come with a coordinator for whatever reason. Don't get plucked in the head coaching games. You have your longtime coordinator and you're like, how come no one ever hires this guy? And you just get to have that guy with you for years is always an interesting plot that goes with these coaches who are, not all of them. But Vrabel walks in, he's got Josh McDaniel already there.
Yeah.
And he's been a failed head coach. So he's not really going to get that opportunity again. So now you have that opportunity to work with this guy and have him be your offensive-minded head coach for the next 10 years probably.
All right, we kept him late at Mike Gill Show. By the way, you got to update us on your travel itinerary because it's pretty significant. Where are you going? The Grand Bazaar this year? What
I leave Thursday. I will be going to Egypt.
Tomorrow you leave?
Egypt. I thought it was Turkey.
Holy moly.
Tomorrow I will be in Egypt, and then I'm going to Jordan, and I will be back on March.
All right. Yeah, I don't know why I thought you were going to Turkey, but I was going to tell you to pick me something up from the Grand Bazaar that's very famous.
Hey, Mike, that's a hell of a trip you got planned there, brother.
I will be across the street from the pyramids of Giza tomorrow afternoon.
Nice.
All right, good stuff.
I'm going to be across the street from 5 inches of packed snow.
Right across the street from the pyramids of Giza, apparently the best view of the pyramids is on the rooftop of a Pizza Hut.
Really?
Wow. So you're going to go to Pizza Hut?
There's a Pizza Hut across the street from the pyramid.
If you're getting Pizza Hut in Egypt, I'm gonna be angry at you. You gotta try the local cuisine.
I don't know that I'll get the Pizza Hut, but I might go on. Apparently, if you go on the roof, that is the best view of the pyramid.
Yeah.
Why are they letting you up on the roof of the Pizza Hut? By the way, I'm concerned about. Why are they letting you on the roof of the Pizza Hut?
Oh, they have rooftop seating.
Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
All right, Mike. Good show, man. We appreciate you joining in. Make sure everybody goes and follows him at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Listen to him at 97.3 ESPN, 97.5 The Fanatic. Mike, thank you, brother. We appreciate it.
Thanks, bud. Enjoy Egypt and Jordan.
There he is. There's Mike Gill, the Egypt man. He still hasn't lived down the ladyboy comments from when he went to Thailand a year ago. We still get those in the chat. Let's see.
Yeah, we're gonna get a bunch of Islamic comments, I'm sure, but people are people.
I don't know about that. Well, maybe I don't know. You never know what the chat will say, John. You never know.
Anyway, world traveler Mike Gill. Good to have.
Are you a world traveler, John? Are you a
no?
Right? I'm not a world traveler. I mean,
I used to travel a ton earlier in my life, mainly obviously in the United States, but No, I've never been a world traveler other than London and things like that. Now at this, I hate travel. I hate it.
I hate it
hate
too.
it.
My
Like,
my fiance wants me to go, so like she's just like I hate it. I do. I get agitated. I don't like the flights. I don't like the
it's
the
not
airports.
that for me. It's like because I was in so many hotel rooms earlier in my like I hate hotels. I hate them. I despise them. And a lot of people say it's like a vacation. No, it sucks.
I'm with you, dude.
Everything
I'm
everything
going to
about
Italy.
it.
I'm going to Italy in June. That's about the first world traveling I've ever done. That's where I'm going. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes there.
But from the standpoint, if we ever get to the point where we're Star Trek, which I was promised early in my life, where you can just beam over there, I'd love to see it. I'd love to go to places. So anybody can come up with that. But spending your entire day in airports and I'd rather do anything else practically. It's awful.
I'm with you, brother. Let's get a couple super chats here today. We have BLG, Brandon Lee Gouton coming up in a little bit. Appreciate Mike Gill for being here. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Don't forget to hit that like button. HKP, thanks for the super, brother. Appreciate it. Sam Darnold had 14 interceptions and was top 3. Risk averse is nonsense. Who won the Super Bowl? Even a running back can fumble on an inside zone. Every play has risk. We have the talent. Take risks. HKP, I like that.
They come on, dude. They won a damn Super Bowl the year prior by doing that. There's more than one way to do things. Always. They literally won the Super Bowl the year prior by being risk averse. So yes, Seattle won it this way. You can win different ways. The same people. Sam Darnold can't win a Super Bowl right up until he did. Like I don't know why people get. You have to do it this way because Seattle won. Did anybody say you have to do it this way because Philadelphia won? No, but they won. Like, how do you put that comment out there? They just won with a risk-averse mindset, which I don't love. It's not pretty. You're not going to get style points, but they fucking won. Did they not, Zander?
They won, John. I remember being on Broad Street for the parade. I remember.
I mean, that is mind-boggling to me how that comment got put out into the ether. Mind-boggling.
HKP
they just won.
He's a big fan of yours. He just got shredded like a.
Well, it's not about shredding. They literally just won with that mindset.
Past
I don't even like.
Past success does not guarantee future results for any of my finance people.
It doesn't, nor does the guarantee. Oh, copy what the Seahawks did.
That's true. That's true.
It's the same thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Here's Mr. Hill. What's up, Mr. Hill? Appreciate the super chat, brother. He says this. The question is, should we trust AJ? I think the real question is, should we trust the organization? I think with the new spread offense, they are pushing Hurts out the door. Your thoughts?
No, I don't think they're pushing him out the door. I think, they want him to improve in certain areas. I mean, the problem, again, it's easy to replace coaches. It's not easy to replace quarterbacks. So you can't push a quarterback with his success level out the door. Well, you can do anything you want, but it wouldn't make a ton of sense because it's not easy to find a quarterback. That's why I don't understand why people push back on my thought of personnel is more important than coaching. It's like, well, you lose Jeff Stoutland, you pick up Chris Cooper, might not be great, but whatever. You pick up Josh Grizzard, you pick up Sean Mann. It's easy to find coaches. Not easy to find quarterbacks. So look, life moves quick, and if Jalen Hurts doesn't play well this year and next year, yeah, then I think they'll move on. But I don't think that's the mindset of they're pushing him out the door. They're praying for the exact opposite, that he can actually do the things that all these Jalenites claim he can do if only given the opportunity. They're hoping he can do that.
Mr. Hill, good question. Appreciate it. Here's HKP following up. HKP, thanks, brother. J-Mac, you can't win the same way every year. You have to adapt. You're not going to win being risk-averse every year. Still love you, J-Mac. You're just being real with me. That's why I love you.
Well, the only point, and I appreciate it, H, and I wasn't trying to pick on you. The only point I'm saying, you're right. You can't weigh the same every year. You can't just be the same. You have to keep adapting. That's the same with the Seahawks. And you're bringing up, you don't just copy who won because they won. They won for a lot of different reasons. My point is you can win a lot of different ways. And I'm a proponent of, and I said it from the start when they were 2-2 and they shifted gears in 2024. I said, I thought it was a little panic. I thought they did it too early. I think, but ultimately what they did worked. So I can't really, say it was wrong because it worked. Now to assume that's going to work in perpetuity, obviously that's not the case. The Seahawks probably aren't going to win next year. They're going to try to do exactly what they did this year because they won.
How do you think the shelf life then, John? Do you think the shelf life of the risk-averse offense is dead? Or they, what's your personal opinion on that part of it? Because we did talk about how the margin for error was very small with that style. Now you're right, they won, but do you think it's expired, the shelf life of winning with that style in the modern game?
Well, I think it should expire. The question is, can it expire? I mean, look, nobody in this league wants to turn the football over. The Seahawks don't want to turn the football over. Sam Darnold doesn't want to turn the football over. Nobody wants to turn the football over. So from that, it's kind of like, what's your definition? They took it to the extreme. Why did they take it to the extreme? Was it just Nick Sirianni? Is it Jalen Hurts? Has it been beaten into his head? Can he change? There's so many questions, but generally where I differ from the Eagles, generally, if you don't turn the football over, you're as talented as the Eagles are, you're going to be in every game, every single game. But where I think they kind of missed the boat is that, well, you're a play away from losing, though, just like you're a play away from winning. And maybe if you had a better balance and pushed it a little bit more, you wouldn't be in that position. And I always go back to the divisional round, which people don't like, against the Rams. They were a block of Jalen Carter away from getting blown out in the divisional round, and all we would have talked about is how bad the passing game was in the offseason. But Jalen Carter got home, and they won, and the rest is history. But that's the margin of error they were working with. And this year, it didn't work. So, but do you throw the baby out with the bathwater like they've done? That to me is a little bit short-sighted from a number of standpoints. One, I don't like groupthink. Everybody, you got to do it this way. You got to do it this way. You got to play the Shanahan offense. You got to play the McVay offense.
The Eagles kind of joined the crowd this summer.
They really did, man. And they don't have a history doing that. I don't think it's a positive thing. You've heard Howie say it. Don't listen to me. We like to zig when everybody else zags, or vice versa. Yeah. Not anymore. You're going the same way. Yeah, and you're in a big freaking traffic jam because half the league is running this offensive scheme. So to me, what does that say? You got to run it best.
I don't think Sean Mannion's running it best, and I don't think that's a knock on him. By the way, I don't think he's just
Well, and by the way, the team that runs it best didn't even win.
Yeah, right.
And
And
that was the Rams. And Kyle obviously, had too many injuries.
I meant to ask you, what do you think of Kyle on the pregame coverage? Did you catch any of that, or maybe not? I know you're not.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job. I caught a little bit of it. You know who I thought was great the weeks prior? Kirk Cousins.
He's going to be phenomenal on TV.
Yeah.
I agree. Here's Tea Time. What's up, Tea Time? Good question here. Do y'all think Hurts wanted this new offense?
No.
What makes you say that? Because I do think, Jalen has kind of contradicted some of his comments. There's been comments where you would think he wanted the new offense. There's also comments where you think the offense was tailor-made for him. So it's hard to get.
I think he knows better. And I think when he's being honest with himself, I think he knows better than anybody else. That's not his game. It's not his game. Get the ball out of his hands, anticipatory throws down the middle. Where's that coming from?
You always say it's hard to be honest with yourself. You think he'd have that type of, personal self-examination or whatever you want to call it?
I think he does. I think he's pretty hard on himself. I think he knows what he does well and leans into it. And ultimately, and that's why I say you still have to wait. Look, they are hell-bent on changing this offense this year. It's different than 2024. It's different. 2024, they were sort of 1 foot in the pool, 1 foot out. They were trying. They did it all. This time, they're doing it. But what does that mean? Does that mean through week 4, week 6, week 8? Obviously, if it's successful, yeah. But if it's unsuccessful, where does it go?
Yeah,
where does it stop?
With Kellen, it was 4 weeks. I don't think it'll be this short. They made too many changes to bail on it in 4 weeks, right, John?
Exactly. This time they got both feet in the pool.
Yeah,
they're going for it.
They didn't touch their toes, man. They did a swan dive, John.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it's going to be interesting if they do struggle. But yeah, that's an interesting question. BLG's coming up. That's maybe where we'll start with him.
Yeah, let's go to him right now. Sue, I'll get to your super chat after the great BLG. Brandon Lee Gouton set to join us right now here on Birds 365. As we bring him in, you can follow him at Brandon Gouton and read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. Truly one of the best Eagles websites there is. BLJ, what's going on, man? How you doing on this Wednesday morning? A lot of change since we last talked, and it wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, let's get into it.
Well, we're going to come in hot because I thought that was a good question. I really haven't thought about it because we talk about so many other things. But the question was, do you think Jalen Hurts wanted this new offense?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Jalen, so the perception of Jalen, right? And the kind of like what gets purported, and I'm not saying this isn't true, but like what we believe to be true is that, he wants to do what it takes to win, right? Like that's kind of the tagline, like the pitch. But obviously within that, that could be true of a lot of people, but there's going to be naturally preferences. That's going to happen wherever. I don't think anyone's just like, total blank slate. Yeah, just tell me what to do, boss. Right? Like I don't think quarterbacks are wired that way. I don't think that's how it works as human beings. So I think Jalen is open to changes, at least based on what I've known about him in the past, to be coachable. But again, he's going to have his own ideas and preferences within that. So I do think open to changes, but also wants to be involved and have ownership and say in what the offense looks like.
Bill G, interesting spot for this team. I think many people, me included, I'm pretty sure you included as well, but I won't speak for you. We watched the offense not only this year, the last couple of years, and It didn't look good. I mean, there was a lot there to pick apart, and at many times I personally called for change, called for a different looking offense, get A.J. Brown more involved, get Devontae Smith more involved. Well, I didn't know they'd go this far, BLJ, to the point that Jeff Stoutland is out the door. Did they go too far to you? Is this the appropriate change based on what the offense has been able to do the last couple of years? Where's the breaking point? And do you think they reached it? How do you kind of view the loss of Jeff Stoutland and what it means for the change that this team's about to undergo?
I think it's a massive loss. And I think anyone trying to convince themselves otherwise is kind of like coping, really, to be quite frank. Like the idea that change, we have to sacrifice one of the best position coaches in the NFL, who's been a major part of why we won 2 Super Bowls here. I mean, those offensive lines from those Super Bowl teams were a huge reason each of those teams won a championship, mind you. And then just not to mention even the player development within that. It's beyond what those lines were this year. But to be able to get to that point, I think losing him is a massive loss. And really, the Eagles didn't want to lose him, by the way. This isn't like, the Eagles are deciding we need to move on and, really change everything. See you, Jeff Stoutland. Thanks for everything, but no thanks. No, they wanted to keep him. It's just that they didn't want to keep him in a certain way that, was probably more so of his old role and having him, be the run game coordinator as well. And therefore, obviously, he didn't want to stay at a point where, he feels like he's not getting, the input that he is used to having and has, quite frankly, built up the equity to have. So I don't buy it as a good thing for the Eagles for sure.
So how do you couch that? Because I agree with you. Obviously, going from Jeff Stoutland to Chris Cooper, and I'm not picking on Chris Cooper, but his history is his history, and Minnesota hasn't had a good offensive line or a good running game, and they didn't want him back because they felt they needed to change. So I'm with you from that just pure obvious standpoint. Like one guy's better than the other guy, and we'll give Chris Cooper a chance, and it's a difficult situation, but if it's the fact that, look, come hell or high water, they want to run this Shanahan McVay type scheme, and that means more wide zone, outside zone stretch, and you got to play a different style, and he doesn't want to get on board. How do you couch that, or do you try to piecemeal it? How do you save that situation?
Yeah, I don't know if I fully believe he didn't want to get on board, just from a standpoint of I don't think Jeff Stoutland's track record suggests he can't do this, considering how long he's coached, considering how good of a coach he is. It could be an adjustment. And also, I think at some level, it's Nick Sirianni's job to get him on board and figure that out. Nick Sirianni has to be, in control of his staff and be able to kind of maybe mend fences here and make things work. That's part, I think, of what he has to do within his scope. So I just think it's an unacceptable loss. I think this idea, it's so binary. You either have to pick this scheme or you have to pick Jeff Stoutland. That, to me, why can't we have it all? I think there has to be a better job of being able to make that work than they did. I don't think you can sit there here and say they did the best job they possibly could. I find that hard to believe.
Well, I love your use of the word binary there, because I've been talking to John about this. Where is if Nick Sirianni's offense is here and West Coast is here, does it have to be either here or here? Can the Eagles go from here to maybe here or here? But BLJ, where I change now is they got rid of Stoutland, which means they're committing in a pretty significant way, to this new style of offense, to the point where Jeff Stoutland didn't want to be a part of it anymore and stepped away. That to me would signal that maybe they're really going for it, dude, and they're going to try and run full West Coast. I don't know if they will or not, but does that make you think that they're going to be more, closer to that full West Coast approach than not?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that, they're going to try different things, and that's commendable. Trying different things is commendable, but just kind of like when, there's a scheme change or, there's something with a star player who's clearly a good talent, and it's he doesn't fit this scheme. Well, it's maybe the scheme isn't that great if the star player doesn't fit into it. And I kind of, feel that same way.
Maybe you shouldn't hire a scheme.
That's
where I am.
Amen,
it's a cliche for a reason in the NFL. if you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. I'm sure you've heard that many times over the years, BLG.
Yep.
And everybody does it. Why is it it's bizarre to me.
It's like a fallback. It's just like, well, this didn't work, so we're just going to default to this, right? Or try this because it's the hot, trendy thing, which honestly, in a way, like, okay, you're looking at it from a standpoint of there are worse paths to pursue, I would think, but logically. But at the same time, the Eagles themselves will talk about how, like, how much pride they take in, like, zagging when everyone else zigs.
Yeah.
Like, they want to be on the forefront of innovation. And this is not the forefront of innovation.
No.
You're following the pack at this point.
Groupthink. It's groupthink. It is pure groupthink. And by the way, because everybody, half the league now is running a version of the Shanahan-McVay scheme. Half the league. So that, to me, from a logic standpoint, what does that mean? Instead of being that innovator, not the copy, that means, all right, who's going to do it best? That makes it less likely to win. Are you going to do it as well as Sean McVay? Are you going to do it as well as Kyle Shanahan? Certainly not right away. Maybe down the road you can get better personnel, better talent. Ironically, though, I think when you look at the good coaches, Sean McVay this year, to me, this was his best coaching job because for years he's been the illusion of complexity guy, the 11 personnel, all 11 personnel. And this year, he didn't have deep receiving room. Devontae got hurt at the end, and he goes to all this 13. He's playing 3 tight ends because he had a bunch of good tight ends. Even he morphs. But everybody, we got to play this game. We got to play this scheme. Fuck the scheme, BLG. I don't understand it. I really don't. And I find it hard to believe after talking to Nick Sirianni for 5 years that he woke up one day and said, you know what? I got to go copy these guys. Like, where is this coming from? That's my concern.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of assistants left on staff that are, his guys, what's it down to? It's Kevin Patullo, I guess, is still here for now. Jamal Singleton's going to be here. Aaron Moorhead was hired before, Nick got here. Going back to Doug.
Final year of Doug. Yeah, Parks Frazier back. That surprised me. Obviously in a different role. And some of the lower level guys. But of the major position coaches, it's just and maybe Scott Loeffler will be back, but that seems to me they're waiting to see. And that's just speculation. I think they're waiting for Greg Olson, I think. But if the Raiders have him under contract and they want him back, you might have to keep Scott Loeffler. But it seems like they don't want to keep him. So that would leave just Singleton and just Moorhead, which is a lot different than 2024 when everybody brings that up. Kellen Moore, they gave Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, and Kyle Valero. That's it. Nobody even knows who Kyle Valero is. And now they've shifted dramatically. And I don't think that's coming from Nick Sirianni. I just don't believe it.
I think it speaks to, like the team was not happy with like how the offense went last year. And really it was a case of like they empowered Nick and gave him his choice of offensive coordinator, at least what you would guess was his choice. And almost like hey, you won the Super Bowl, great job. You get this. This is what you get. You get to be in charge of that. Contrast to how he didn't have that when they brought in Kellen Moore after 2023. And now you're in a spot where maybe even less so, like you just said, with the amount of assistants that are different from, bringing in with a new offensive coordinator as well than it was with Kellen Moore, that it's like, hey, Nick, we don't really trust you that much, which is crazy to me. Why? And like, I know you're not going to fire the Super Bowl winning head coach like a year later, but what is this like kind of half measure approach where like you clearly don't fully believe in the coach to the extent I think of the new assistants you're bringing in, but he's still here. It's a weird approach to me. It might work out, but it feels a little like they're kind of the waters are murky here.
Well, and to your point, real quick, sorry, Zander. To your point, Howie is the author of "We want to zig when everybody else zags." He's the one who says it. So I don't think it's Howie. I think it's Jeffrey. Am I wrong in your percent or not? I think it's all coming from Jeffrey.
That makes sense. I think, there's layers, as we know.
Yeah.
But it does feel like kind of like a heavy-handed ownership, Jeffrey Lurie thinking and thinking in the right place, I will say, in terms of like big picture, like we need to improve the offense. How do we do that? Like, yes, correct. But how you're going about that, that might not be necessarily the most conducive way to success based on what they've done thus far.
BLJ, my next question has to do with the personnel, and I understand the challenges that come with this as opposed to changing coaches, but dude, this is a lot of change on the coaching staff. How much change are you expecting the personnel to follow? I mean, John's talked about it on the show. We've even talked about it a little bit. This team, they don't really have the build out of the right players for this style of offense. Now, they're all talented guys. I'm sure it will work to some extent, but the offensive line's a bunch of maulers. The running back is not great in catching the ball out of the backfield. It's not great in pass protection, not great with the short, in the short game outside of running the football. How much personnel change do you think will follow this much change to the offensive coaching staff?
I think first of all, I think this isn't talked about enough because naturally, we're all focusing on the coaching staff this time of year. It's what's in the news. Free agency isn't for a month still. So I get it. But I mean, the bigger question to me is what the talent looks like, what the roster looks like, because there's so many questions. And I think we're so used to being like, oh, the Eagles have one of the most talented offenses in the NFL. Because they've had that for the past so many years here. And I mean, I guess it's possible a scenario like that unfolds where that's still the case, but it's also possible not even close from a standpoint of we don't know if A.J. Brown's going to be here, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson. We don't know if Cam Jurgens will get back to what he was. Dallas Goedert's a free agent. Jahan Dotson's a free agent. Again, not a great player, but someone you still have to fill those snaps somehow. So there's, on one hand, if you're an optimist, you could say there's open holes for the team to maybe get better, and maybe we overrated the talent last season, and let's say you crush the draft and you make some good free agent additions, you work the trade market. There's potential for upside, but there's also a lot of potential, I feel like, for downside, and they don't get adequate replacements for a lot of these guys. And all of a sudden we're like, this ain't one of the top offenses in the NFL from a talent standpoint anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. From the standpoint, and I was thinking about this because everybody to this point, and it's mock draft season. Everybody's going to start with that as the combine starts later this month. And really, the guy I've seen connected to the Eagles early on more than anybody else is Caden Proctor, the big offensive tackle from Alabama. He's like 6'7", 360. And to me, right off the bat, BLG, I'm like, yeah, if Jeff Stoutland was here, it's the typical Eagles that we think of. This guy's the perfect fit. He could probably start inside a guard and be a Mekhi Becton-like presence and then kick out what they've been looking for over the past number of years as the heir apparent to Lane Johnson. Makes 100% complete sense. I'd probably pick him in my mock draft. Now I'm like, you want a 6'7", 360-pound kid reach blocking all Sunday afternoon, trying to angle guys as they kick out and move like Alex Gibbs? Do we have to start thinking about different philosophies for the personnel from Howie's perspective? And then the second part of that is, we don't even know if Vic Fangio is going to be back next year or Nick Sirianni. Mm-hmm. So is it just, if you're Howie, how do you handle that? Is it just, I'm taking the best players?
I think it's, at the end of the day, it's Howie taking the best players, but I think it's inarguable that Jeff Stoutland had a lot of input on what they did with the offensive line, and they really leaned on his voice there. I don't know what that looks like now. I don't know that they really trust Chris Cooper. I don't know that's definitely the case. I don't know what Chris Cooper likes. Maybe they just go with what they think Jeff Stoutland would have liked anyway. I don't know. It's a huge question that we have to figure out here, because like you said, for the longest time we just kind of knew what to expect from what Jeff Stoutland likes, how the Eagles respect his opinion, how they're gonna use that information to inform their decision making. But yeah, now we don't know. We're kind of flying blind here with Chris Cooper.
BLG, what are you thinking on the free agency coming up? You got Phillips, Blankenship, Dean, Dallas Goedert's a big one. I think that's obviously, important too with the offensive changes. Where do you think the priority lies? And do you feel strongly about one guy or another that they'll either sign him or not re-sign him?
Yeah, I think the big one, obviously, to figure out is Jalen Phillips. Probably try to get a sense of what his market is. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty big. If that number is out of control, as I've said here multiple times, like you just don't hand him a blank check. The number is way crazy high. Then I think you just kind of have to let him walk. You could potentially, get the comp pick back for him, depending on what else you do in free agency. But that's the thing: if you let him walk, you're going to have to figure out a way to
Right.
replace him because all you have is Jalen Hunt and Nolan Smith, basically at that point. Maybe you bring BG back for another year. Seems like he wants to play. I think he can play, but I don't even know if he's an edge rusher moving forward, as much as he looks really good on the interior there.
Yeah.
So they have a lot to figure out. I think if and then Jalen, you have to figure out. I think Jalen Phillips first.
All right, AJ Brown to me is even really above Jalen Phillips,
Sure.
but in a different method. You have to make the decision. You have to decide where you're going to go. Made some news out at the Super Bowl, talking to Micah Parsons, said all the right things. Is that just both sides? Where has that shifted your? I know you've been more.
Yeah.
AJ's not going to be back. Did that shift it at all for Brandon Gouton?
No. And again, I want AJ. I think AJ should be here. This isn't like I'm of the mind that AJ needs to be gone, so therefore I'm
No.
gone. That's
Yeah, I know.
and I'm not. You're saying that, but I feel like I get that a lot.
Yeah.
That's not the case. I think he should be here, but I also look at reality and I see, he's probably not going to be. Very likely to me, not going to be here. So I can't ignore that and project what I think should happen on what will happen. Those are two different things. Like when you're making a mock draft, like okay, you can make one where you want the things to happen, but there's another one where like the more information, the more useful one typically is the one where you're projecting what will happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that didn't change anything for me. I think it's a matter of AJ, like doing the right things in terms of it doesn't make it easier for him if he does want to trade to, put up a stink and make it harder for the Eagles to trade him at that point. So I think he's saying all the right things, but more important than anything with all this stuff, it's always most telling what they don't say. And I didn't hear AJ Brown saying there, I'm definitely going to be back in Philadelphia. No questions asked. I want to be back. It's all like, that's not what I didn't hear that. He did say Philly is home. I get that. And look, I think AJ Brown has a lot of love for Philadelphia. Like, I don't think that's his issue with wanting to be gone from the Eagles. I don't think he hates the fans or anything. I don't think that's the case. I think he's frustrated with other things about the team that aren't changing, and therefore I think will want to be gone still.
Well, are these changes maybe enough to change his mind? I mean, are they going to? You would think they would call him and say, "AJ, look at what we're doing. We're changing the offense. You're going to get the ball more in theory." Will that be enough? You think that will be enough to win him over a little bit?
I have a hard time believing that because I don't think that's really why he was frustrated last year, or at least like the biggest reason he was frustrated. I think it's ultimately the dynamic with the quarterback. And that's not to say he necessarily hates Jalen Hurts. I think that kind of gets overblown. But I think it's a matter of I don't think necessarily he thinks he's the best fit with Jalen Hurts' style of play at this point in time. And not even just that, but also kind of the approach that the team takes in terms of, how they've been conservative here and aren't willing to open it up. And AJ has spoken about that many a time in public. It's not even just me, filling in the blanks. It's his words. So, I think all of that leads me to believe that I just don't think it's like, oh, you hired Sean Mannion, so now AJ's on board.
Yeah, I'm with you with AJ. It's not about people. It's about he hasn't liked the offense. And he hasn't liked the offense for a very long time. I don't think it has to do anything with disliking Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts or Kevin Patullo or anybody else. It's about his frustration in the style of offense they played. And we'll see how it works out. I've kind of dipped. It shifted me a little bit. I've been about 50-50 more AJ leaving. Now I'm back to 50-50 more AJ staying, not because of anything other than it's just so difficult from a cap standpoint. Like if it were a year down the line, I'd be like, he's gone. 90% he's gone.
Mhm.
But I just think it's so difficult to move him from that perspective. I keep teetering over that 50% line. We never talk about the defense, so I'm going to talk about the defense real quick with you here, BLG. How concerned are you with Jalen Carter? Because he was not himself this season. With the persistent shoulder pain, they're using experimental treatments, let's be honest. And in the playoff game against San Francisco, he did not play well. How concerned, because I think we all were in that category, this guy's going to be in the defensive player of the year conversation, very young. That's going to be the talent is unbelievable. But if they can't fix this shoulder thing, I mean, the guy who was playing at the second half of the season, that's not the Jalen Carter we all expected. How concerned are you with Jalen Carter?
Yeah, I mean, with the medical situation, I don't know all the details. I don't think any of us do, but that's the big question, because you see the high watermark with him in terms of when he's at his best. He does stuff that I think few other players can. He's very special at his best. Problem is, need to see him more closer to that, or at his best a lot more often. And I think part of it's he played such a massive workload in 2024, and that's kind of
unbelievable. It was over 1,000 snaps for an interior defensive lineman. It's crazy.
For as much as Vic gets right, I think that's kind of a major drawback. Like that's tough, because I think it's hard to say those things aren't related in terms of Jalen Carter. And well, you could argue, it's worth it because they went all in, they won the Super Bowl. Like that's the point. But the cost is that, the player's going to feel it in the next year in a major way. And that really didn't set him up for success in 2025. So,
and to your point, BLG, he was on pace to, before they shut him down, he was on pace to have the most snaps of any interior again this season.
Yeah, I think they have to find a way to balance that a little bit better. And I don't know if they will, because, Vic believes what he believes. And if that's one of the drawbacks of Vic Fangio, you certainly take that for all the good you get. But it's huge, because I think we've all just been assuming like they're going to extend Jalen Carter, and I would tend to think they want to do that still, but like he needs to have a really big year in 2026, because last year was a disappointment, starting from he gets ejected before the season even really starts. And then just how it unfolded from there. And again, I don't think all of it's necessarily his fault. I think some of it is in his control. And, Vic Fangio is talking about conditioning, and I think that's kind of alarming. You don't want to hear that being an issue. But part of it is just that like it's tough to take on these workloads, and I don't know where he's at medically. And obviously the Eagles have more information on that, but if it's not good, that could prohibit a contract extension.
What did you think of the Michael Parsons comment about, they offered Jalen Carter? I said to John didn't take the bait. I'm like, well, if they offered him for Micah, will they offer him for somebody else? Is he, is he more? I didn't view him as an available to trade type of guy. I understand the player Michael Parsons is, but what'd you make of that story, BLJ?
Yeah, I was surprised. I don't know. I don't know how much of that is, real. Right. I'm not saying Micah necessarily is lying. I just don't know to what extent.
Yeah. Like did Dallas ask for him? Did
right.
The Eagles offer him? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. My guess is not the Eagles were just like, oh yeah, we'd love to trade Jalen Carter. That's not my impression. But maybe it's at the point where like negotiations are so close, and it's like, well, that's what gets it done for us. We really love Micah Parsons, and that could be worth it to us. And we're concerned about Jalen Carter's long-term outlook, maybe with his shoulders or everything. Maybe. But I think there's a lot of detail and nuance that we don't exactly know there.
Well, number one, I don't think Dallas was going to trade him in the division.
Sure. Right, exactly.
Right off the bat. But I do think, and that's what I said earlier, look, if that would have got it done, they would have done it. I do believe that because that's how much they value Micah Parsons. Yeah. But to Zander's point of, does that mean he's on the trade? No, there's like two players in the world they trade him for, Mike and Miles. That's it.
Right.
So I wouldn't worry about it from that perspective.
Yeah, they weren't like looking to get value for him.
No, yeah, right. But that's how I kind of took that standpoint, and from that perspective, Now, I guess I'll end it there. At Brandon Gouton, make sure you follow BLG on the X platform. As Zander mentioned, bleedinggreennation.com, tremendous website. Get all your Eagles news every morning. I recommend that highly. The coaching staff as a whole, and again, we normally, because there's been such turnover on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball not talked about as much. There was the retirement scare for Vic Fangio, however you want to label it, but we now know he's, he can walk away any year, anytime. And the names they mentioned, did that surprise you at all? That the contingencies, when you hear names like Jonathan Gannon, Jim Schwartz, from the perspective, not as much as Gannon. I don't know why Gannon would want to come back, but at least he plays a similar style. So, but this is, again, scheme dependent. If you're going back to a Jim Schwartz, if Jim is taking a year off and saying, hey, maybe I'll come back to Philly, again, you're changing completely with an offense, with a defense that's not built to play how Vic Fangio wants to play. Boy, it's crazy to me to be that centric, or am I overthinking it? And they're just good players. Like Jalen Carter would fit in perfectly with Jim Schwartz. Yeah. He'd be the happiest guy on the planet to play for Jim. But that's very few. The linebackers that we thought have been great. The way they play coverage in the secondary would completely change. Same scheme issues. What are we doing here? Are we too scheme dependent, BLG?
I love Schwartz. I've been a big time, Schwartz defender, even back when he was here. I think you look at his track record. It's
he's
awesome.
Great. He's great.
Especially when you look at relative to like what the team invests each year, and you look at that team's injury luck each year, and he always does what at the very basic level I think good coaching is. He does more with less. That is what good coaching is. I think Jim Schwartz, like year after year, does that. He gives you more out of what you have, talent-wise. So yeah, I'm all about that. And hey, he might be back here in Philly next year, depending what happens with him, depending what happens with Vic. There's some buzz about that, and I think that would be a great hire. Obviously, I'm not a Jonathan Gannon guy, and I'm also surprised the Eagles would broach that just from the standpoint of like things left off on a bad note here when with the tampering thing and all that. And my sense was
I don't think it left on a bad note personally.
My sense was that there was some frustration there from some parties within the Eagles, so I was a little bit more surprised about that one. But also, when you're desperate like that, it's not insane to me that they would revisit that.
BLG, good stuff. My last question for you here, and you reserve the right to change. Will Nick Sirianni be here when we're talking a year from now?
So on brand for me to say no.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say no because I just don't. A big part of my frustration or the criticism that comes from me is just I genuinely don't have a lot of confidence or belief in the value that he specifically adds. So it's possible that I'm wrong about this from a standpoint in my mind of things work out otherwise, because I think that's how things have gone for him in the past. He's had a lot of support, and then he can maybe make the most of that within that system. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Nick going into this year, and I think he's going to have to do a much better job than he has done in the past, because I think he didn't do a very good job last year. Jim Schwartz, do more with less, because I think he might have less in 2026. And I don't have full confidence that he's going to be able to do that. So I think he's been better in the front runner position, and I don't think the Eagles are necessarily going to be in that position this year.
BLG, we'll see, man. Appreciate you joining in today. Make sure everybody goes and follows BLG at Brandon Gouton and read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. If you're an Eagles fan and you're not on Bleeding Green Nation, you're not being as good of a fan as you can be. So go check it out. BLG, thank you, brother. We appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you.
Thanks.
BLG. There's BLG. Brandon Lee Gouton joining us here on Birds 365. Great show today. Two great guests today. Johnny Mack, always good to get our Wednesday shows in. BLG and Mike Gill always bring a lot to the program. Boy, John, a lot of good questions in this offseason, man. I tell you what, a
A
lot
lot
of
of
good
uncertainty. That's why. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
that's
just
right.
so much uncertainty, and I'm very. They're hiring a scheme, and look, that's not the way this team has been. That's not the way this team has been. The way this team has been successful. I just don't think that's the proper way to do business, and I think Nick knows that, and I think Howie knows that. So who doesn't know that? I think it traces to one person.
So you're feeling like most of this switch is down on Lurie. Now, here's my question, John, about that, because I actually happen to agree with you. But there's a word that you used about Jeffrey Lurie recently. It was suggestive, I think was the word you used. He's a suggestive owner. He's not the type of guy that's going to come in and say, do this. He's going to ask questions and kind of passive aggressively tell you what he wants in a way.
Exactly. I don't think he's decreeing you have to do this. I think he is.
Well,
but
that's
again,
what I mean. Like, is he asking for this, or does Nick feel like if I don't do this, I'm getting fired?
That Nick feels that he knows, and that's why I bring up the political savviness. He understands what the landscape is, and he's trying to placate the owner. And I don't think that's the best way to win, to say the least. Now, I also think the offense has got to improve. That a lot of people assume. I think no, you don't change the. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you don't do it just drastically. And they've been trying to evolve this whole time. I know people don't believe that, but they've been trying to evolve this thing the whole time. And my point is, they haven't been successful. So why haven't they been successful? Well, maybe it's the coaches. I think it has more to do with the players, as I always do. So all of a sudden, you haven't been successful taking the little steps, and now you want to make the leap. Like, where's the logic in that?
Feels like sink or swim.
Well, I think it is sink or swim for a lot of people, starting with Nick Sirianni. Remember, if Nick Sirianni leaves, that means the majority of the coaching staff leaves as well. So you have 1 year with Sean Mannion. Very unlikely a new head coach would want to, be decreed to that, hey, you got to keep Sean Mannion as the offensive coordinator. Yeah. Or keep even, in the case of Vic Fangio, if he wanted to continue coaching, there's two levels to that. Depending on, somebody might want Vic Fangio. But you get the point. The vast majority of the coaching staff would be gone. So, this is way too panic driven for me, is basically where I'm at. I get how ugly the offense looked. I get it. And you need to evolve it. You need to improve it. But, I was more hyper-focused on, look, the bigger part, that the passing game has stunk the entire way. And that's a little bit too harsh. They have their ups moments, but there were a lot of down moments in 2024 that people forget about because they ended up winning the Super Bowl. But that's where all the AJ angst started. People talk about AJ being unhappy. He's been unhappy for a long time.
Yeah.
And frustrated.
People forget the 24. I don't know how. I mean, it was a huge. They brought remember they brought the author in because he was reading the book. I mean, it was like this huge ordeal. The entire NFL world.
Oh my God, the Carolina game, which was probably the low point, where they should have lost to Carolina, who were bad. At the
Xavier
time.
Leggett, remember he dropped the ball at the end.
Xavier Leggett, dropped the ball. It's and they've been trying to improve. They haven't been able to do it. But to me, the biggest difference again was the running game and the offensive line and the injuries. And that's what took the big downtick. And all of a sudden you're saying, well, we're going to throw everybody in the deep end of the pool. We're doing this. We're going to go play like Sean McVay. Go play like Kyle Shanahan. I can't believe people are on board with this and not questioning it more. Can it work? Sure. Anything could work.
I think people feel like the offense really was bad last year, and I don't think they're wrong, and I think they're more optimistic about the change than you are. We'll see if it works. John, a couple super chats to wrap up the show today. Here's Suo Blaze. What's up, Suo? Thanks for the super. Sorry I didn't get to it till a little later. He says, how is being up 28-0 in the Super Bowl and still throwing a deep dagger to Devontae Smith to make it 34-0 risk averse? We unleashed in the playoffs, 55 points on the commies.
So what are you trying to say, Sue? Yeah, are you trying to say the Eagles weren't risk averse in the 2024 season? Is that really where you're going? Is that really where you're going? They weren't a risk averse offense in 2024.
They threw for 2,900 yards. I mean, they were risk averse for sure.
I mean,
I think maybe Suo's saying that when the playoffs,
that's like, yeah, if you're up 40 points in an NBA game, yeah, you're pretty relaxed. What about the divisional round? Yeah, they blew two teams out. Games have personalities. You're very relaxed. It's easy to throw a dagger when you're up.
Yeah, right. When you give it up, there's less risk up 28 than there is at any other.
When you're giving up 23 yards of total offense in the first half, yeah, you're feeling pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, right.
What come on. That's what I just said, and I had no idea this was coming. This is a perfect example. We're talking about the Carolina game, which was an abject disaster in the 2024 season. And AJ, hey, what's the problem? Passing. That was the quote. The angst this team had throughout the 20, and I specifically just said, and everybody forgot about it because they won the Super Bowl. Because they won the Super Bowl doesn't mean it didn't exist. To Zander's point, they threw for more yards this year than they did in 2024. Jalen Hurts had more touchdown passes this season than 2024. What are you talking about, dude?
Nice rep from John. Let's go to Mr. Hill. What's up, Mr. Hill? Thanks for your support today. A couple supers from you. He says, AJ is as important as Reggie was back in the day. That's a big proclamation right there.
Well, and Reggie left, so don't be surprised. That was free agency, but yeah, different time, obviously.
Very different time.
Before, Jeffrey Lurie. But yeah, I mean, if the Eagles didn't have all the cap issues, he'd be gone. But they do. So they'll try to work it out, I think, for one more year.
Here's Mr. Hill again. J-Mac, rumor has it Tampa wants Nakobe Dean. What's your thoughts?
I don't know where the rumor comes from, but I assume a number of teams will want Nakobe Dean. He's a good player.
I could see that in Tampa.
The only questions with him are injury related, and people are going to do their medical due diligence, I'm sure. But I can't imagine he won't get at least a 2-year deal for somewhat significant money. And if that's the case, he's probably going to be elsewhere, whether it's Tampa or somewhere else.
Mr. Hill, thank you, brother. Here's Pumper. J-Mac, is Sam Darnold a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts?
No. But he's a good quarterback. Sam Darnold.
I agree. Good answer. Good question. Pump, appreciate everybody for being here this morning. Don't forget to hit the like button. John, your final thoughts here on our Wednesday edition of Birds 365. I thought our two guests were great per usual, and a lot of good conversation happening in Eagle Land. We'll talk a little bit more about the potential personnel changes tomorrow. I'll circle that. I mentioned it earlier in the show. We didn't quite get to it. I did ask BLG about it, but I'll ask you more about it tomorrow. Your final thoughts here on Wednesday's show, my friend.
Well, personnel is a big part of it. I mean, it's going to be interesting if how he goes scheme related. I don't think he will, because I think he knows better than anybody how it could be overturned at any moment. So I think you just try to get the best players available. The only thing you don't want to do is, acquire a player that the coach has no interest in playing. And we saw it with Bryce Huff and with Vic Fangio, but also, there's very few coaches that have the cachet to say, oh, I'm not going to play that guy. And Vic does. Sean Mannion, obviously, at his age, with his experience, will not have that cachet. So that might take care of itself. But the question on the field is fit. And are guys going to fit this particular offensive scheme? On paper, doesn't look like a lot of guys do. And that shouldn't be a surprise because they haven't been playing this scheme. So they've been designed for the scheme that they played. The question is, are they good enough to play in any scheme? And that's, we won't know that until September and October.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, good show today, my friend. We will talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365, a Thursday edition. Appreciate you doing it today, my friend. We'll talk to you then.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right. Thanks, Jim Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show today from Johnny Mac. Great show from Mike Gill, from Brandon Lee Goutman, and a great show from the great people of JAKIB Nation. I thought we had some good super chats today. HKP, I know J Mac ripped you, but I actually thought your point was good. Mr. Hill, I thought had some good comments. Even Pumper with a good question there at the end. Suo, I know John didn't agree with you, but I certainly understood what you were going for with the comment. And I do appreciate all you guys being here. You always bring some good questions to the show, and we appreciate that. As far as this team goes right now, I meant to get to that today with John. I do wonder, guys, I know everybody on offense is under contract, and for the most part, I don't think anybody feels doom and gloom about the players on offense. At least I think that's the vast majority of fans. I mean, is there areas you can get better? Obviously. But I think for the most part, and you guys can correct me if you feel I'm wrong, I think for the most part, people feel good about the personnel in the offense. They feel good about the receivers. They feel good about the quarterback, or at least good enough about the quarterback that he'll have a good year. They feel good about the running back. They feel like the offensive line, while they had a down year, they're not going to be down forever. I think for the most part, people feel good about the personnel, but what comes with the personnel changes when you make this type of change to the staff? I mean, doesn't it almost feel backwards if they're going to switch the staff literally completely? I mean, they basically nuked the entire offensive staff. You would think there would have to be some personnel changes, especially if John is right, and I hope this isn't true. I don't think anybody should feel good about this. If they're hiring a scheme. Hiring a scheme is not the way to coach in the National Football League. I know a lot of people do it successfully. Kyle, McVay, these are coaches that will trade players who don't fit their scheme. I understand it, but you have a set group of players. You have a certain skill sets. You have certain talents. You have certain guys on your roster. This is where I disagree with people about Nick. And your job as a coach is to get the best out of the players that you have and the talent that they have. And I don't know if playing West Coast offense, I don't think it's good for Jalen. I don't think it's good for Saquon. I don't think it's good for A.J. Brown. I don't think it's good for Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson. I don't know, and that makes me wonder, what is Howie thinking about? Is Howie looking like we got to make some changes on the personnel? Or is he thinking the offensive personnel is good enough to adapt? I don't know. I think that's something to keep an eye on, man. I really do, because, as bad as the offense was and maybe as necessary as changes were, these are big changes. These are sweeping changes. And how will the personnel be affected? How will the personnel be affected? I think it's a good question here. All right. I'll go to some comments. What's going on, everybody? B How. What's up, Brandon Howard? Good to see you, my brother. He says, Zander, why wait to rebuild the offensive scheme? If it's bad, change it. Then as we're able to change the personnel as we navigate contracts and cap, we can change the offense. We're in a long rebuild. See, Brandon, I agree with your point, but I think where I'm hesitant to go there, Brandon, is, and maybe I'm wrong for this, I haven't wanted to accept that we're in an offensive rebuild. I've wanted to look at it like we're retooling our already, really stacked offense. I know John pushes back on this, but I'm sorry, man. I think this is a pretty stacked offense. I really do. I know it's not perfect. I know it might not be what it was in 23 or 24, but this is a pretty good freaking offense on paper, dude. I mean, I'm sorry, it is. So I've tried to stop myself from accepting that it's a full rebuild on offense, but I think, Brandon, the evidence would stack up more in your favor than it would in mine. I think the evidence would stack more in your favor than it would in mine. So I do appreciate the comment because I don't think you're off base. I don't want to go there yet personally, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. Here's Abe. It could be that's the whole point. I'm looking at it now, Zander. We'll see what they do, Abe. All right. Abe says, Zander, we have to start accepting it since Lane and Stout are the last ones that was involved in the first Super Bowl. It's true, man. Zander, let's see that mock draft. That's a good one, Pump. I'll get one done. I'll get one done for you. Rasputin, what's up, brother? Paradigm shift. We've never had O-line issues like this in 20 years. It's so true, dude. It's so true. You know, and Rasputin, I tend to be more with you because I saw some of your comments earlier than John. John, you know, more thinks of the offensive line had a bad year and he thinks they could get better. He's concerned about Landon, but he thinks Juergens will be better. He thinks, you know, Lane will be back. He thinks Mailata will have a good year. Like, he thinks they're going to be okay. I'm more with you, Rasputin, where I look at that O-line and I'm like, I have no clue what Landon's future looks like. I have no clue what Cam Juergens' future looks like. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Lane Johnson hung him up. Is Tyler Steen a long-term guy? I still feel pretty good about Mailata, you know. So I actually fall more in your camp here, Rasputin, of like, boy, that's a question we haven't had to answer in a long time in Philly. And now you've got a new offensive line coach and some offensive linemen that are, who knows? Who knows? Going to be interesting. Flex says you and Sill should do. Oh, we'll do one, Flex. We'll definitely do one. Sills likes to always say, I only do 3 a year. I might make him do 1 a fucking day, Flex. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not making Sills do shit. It's his show. I don't lead like that. I don't like to, you know. I don't need to micromanage. Cilia does a good show. I don't need to micromanage it. But I will partake in a mock draft for sure. Here's VSVA. What's up, brother? J-Mac says all the time that coach builds offense around the players. Should we be assuming this will be a full-blown West Coast offense? Maybe give Mannion the benefit of the doubt. Well, VSVA, I actually agree with you. But here's the thing that changed it for me a little bit. If this was the case, VSVA, and they weren't going full West Coast, why did Jeff Stoutland leave? Like, Jeff Stoutland leaving, to me, was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of, all right, now I think it's going to be completely different. Like, if Jeff Stoutland left, this thing's going to look completely different. So I hear what you're saying. I just don't know if it adds up. Great show, Zander. Enjoy your day. Rasputin, thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man. See you this afternoon. Here's Ro Philly. What's up, Ro? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Z, do you want AJ here even if he doesn't want to be here? If he buys in and wants to say, then I want him back. But if he's just going to cause problems, if it doesn't go away, then he needs to go. I agree with you, dude. I'm an AJ guy, but I agree with you. You know, we've already learned the lesson that the bitching and the moaning, even if you're right, AJ, is not necessarily the best way to approach it. And we have that type of intel now. It didn't work. It wasn't conducive to success. It wasn't productive for the team. It wasn't productive for the football, for the quarterback, for the coaches, for the fan base, for anybody. And the other thing, Roll Philly, that comes from this is I'm an A.J. Brown guy, but I also watched A.J. Brown play some of his worst football, in the playoffs this year. I'm not of the belief that's because A.J. Brown's skill set is dissipating. I'm of the belief that A.J. Brown lacked focus late in the year. I'm of the belief that A.J. Brown listened to his own narratives and stopped giving 110% on every play. That's what my belief is. And if that's going to be the case, then I'm with you, Roll. What are we really doing here? I don't want you to be a part and you give me 90%. You know, it's an old quote from my favorite movie, Miracle. I always reference Miracle. You give 90%, or no, you give, what do you say? You give 100%, you make my job very easy. All right? You got to give 150%. You got to be all in. If you're not all in, I think I'd just rather go our separate way. In the long term, it'd probably be better for us. But I also acknowledge, Ro, I also want to, in the same breath where I'll say that, I also want to acknowledge this. We can't act like A.J. Brown's not as good as A.J. Brown is. We can't act like A.J. Brown hasn't been one of the best receivers we've ever had on the Philadelphia Eagles. We can't act like this guy didn't come to Philly and everything about our fucking team changed, Ro. Sorry for my language. Think about it. A.J. showed up in the offseason after 21. That is the direct inflection point of when the Philadelphia Eagles have been certified, bona fide Super Bowl contenders every year with 2 appearances and 1 trophy to boot. So we also can't leave that out. When A.J. Brown showed up, holy shit, Philly got good quick. I don't want to act like that doesn't exist either. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I think A.J. Brown is one of those. It's a tough decision, man. I do think we need him though, and I think we will be a lot. I mean, I'll say this: you can be as optimistic as anybody. You could be as optimistic as Emirates, although he's not optimistic. He's delusional, and he chooses to be, which I respect him for. But all right, he's consistent. If you guys really believe that, like, this is where it's getting hard. Every year we come in, and I think for the last 4 years, every fan has thought, all right, there's a shot we can win the Super Bowl. It doesn't mean you're going to win it. You don't win it every year, but we're a contender. We are one of the teams that can win the Super Bowl. I think everybody said that the last 4 years. You're going to get to a point in this offseason, though, where, guys, that's going to be a hard sell. And I don't say that as an Eagle doomer or trying to be a pessimist. To think you're going to change an entire offensive coaching staff with a bunch of guys who don't have a lot of experience. Sean Mannion's 33. Josh Grizzard's 35. Mahaffey's 38. And this O-line coach is 43. I mean, Jeff Stoutland's 20 years of superior. 20 years of experience. And then if you also add to the changes of the coaching staff that A.J. Brown's gone and Dallas Goedert's gone, like, dude, all right, guys, we got to be real. We got to be honest. You're not changing your entire offensive coaching staff with a bunch of rookies or a bunch of, less experienced coaches, getting rid of your best receiver, maybe your best player on offense, getting rid of your tight end who led the team in touchdowns, and then thinking you're just going to, okay, we'll be back in the Super Bowl. Like, dude, that sounds crazy to me. Do you guys agree with that? You guys disagree with me here? I mean, that's a lot of change to just be like, okay, we're going back again. I don't know about that. That's a lot of freaking change. That's a lot of change to say, hey, we're going to be a Super Bowl contender, really, with an entire new offensive staff, with no A.J. Brown, with no Dallas Goedert. I mean, that's a lot of stars that need to align. That's a lot of stars that need to align. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, all right? I love all you guys. I appreciate it. Keese, was my internet better to this morning? I'm trying to fix it. It's weird. I spend a lot of time on this shit. I spend it for the top internet. My internet shouldn't be bad. All right. My internet shouldn't be bad. Have a look. Have a look. Here we go. We're calculating. Download speed is 931 megabytes per second. And our upload speed is calculating now. 920. Let's see what it ends with. Our upload speed. Now, if you're not an internet nerd, 925.67 upload speed. Now, if you're not an internet nerd, that's pretty damn good upload speed. Why is this not working? So I was pissed off yesterday. All right, I'm pissed off. Kirsten, good to see you, Kirsten. Are you fucking kidding me? You asked about internet and it froze. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Damn, 3.5 gigabytes per second is nuts. Zander got that Jalen Hurts Wi-Fi. Fuck off, pump. Maybe it's because I will say this. I got a splitter down there. So I'm looking at my Wi-Fi splitter. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 devices in my splitter. I got 2 Mac Minis, a Mac Studio, my iMac, and I even hardwired in my laptop because I use all my computers throughout the day. I mean, what the hell? What the hell, folks? It's not why, Abe. Why is my damn speed test so good, Abe? Yes, it's a 1 gig switch. Top of the top. I even bought new Cat 6 cables. All right, I even bought all new Cat 6 cables. What do you know about Cat 6? All new. Yeah, I got 10 of them. All new Cat 6 cables. You gotta be fucking kidding me, man. You gotta be fucking kidding me. And team, you calling my cables Timu? China shit. Fuck you, Catch. Man, this is some bullshit. Man, this is some bullshit. Oh, man. All right, folks. All right. I love all you guys. I appreciate all you guys. Hit the like button, man. Hit the like button. All right. Keys, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting very agitated, though, at the internet. I mean, I was on shitty Wi-Fi. My upload speed was like 130 as opposed to 930. And I had perfect internet when I wasn't in my studio. I mean, come on here. Maybe that Mac Studio is pulling too. I'm still using my iMac. That might be it. I'm still using the iMac for the shows. My Mac Studio, I get off here. It's nice. I just like, this is my show computer. I just scoot out of here, pop right over to my Mac Studio. Got the fresh new keyboard, the fresh new mouse. I mean, I'm ready to rumble over here. In fact, let me load it up, get it ready for my my midday work session. I love to work, man. I love to work. All right. Zander, you've only said see it twice so far. Big Mike, fuck you, Big Mike. I'm just kidding. I love you, pal. All right. I'm just kidding. Squirrel running on the cable. Maybe catch. Oh, man. You're like the black dude from Kim Possible. Kim Possible? What the fuck is Kim Possible? Oh, I've seen this shit. Kim Possible. Who's the black dude? Now, he says me typing in on Google. Kim Possible black dude. Oh, come on, man. He's fat. You call me fat? Fucking Kim Possible, he hits me with. Dude's chugging sodas. Come on, man. He was the tech guy. Okay. All right. That's good. All right, guys. I'm outie. 5,000. Hit the damn like button. I'll see you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.